Okay. Hello, everyone. This is technically part two, but it's my attempt at the whole talk again because the first time had a lot of interruptions. Hopefully, this time there will be less. Pretty much, I'm wondering about how far can human design echo, and I'm really looking at what the human design means. And when I come to look at the human design, I look at the human being. And that question comes, what are the dimensions that the existence or the experience of the human being are projected or laid out as? You see very instantly, you notice you're the objective realm. Literally look at your physical body right now. Look at your physical existence. You notice your objective realm. This is your objective realm. Now, where your identity, ideology, selfhood, where that exists can be considered to be more unknown and can be considered to be part of how the mind isn't a particle, but it's a process to itself. That means you are a natural process, and this is unavoidable. So, if we want to wonder about the human design as if it's the mind, it's the actual human biological being's endurance, then the human design that must echo must retain and maintain the human design. That means we must care about the human form more than we shouldn't let skill cause us to become a technological entity. I remember writing the script. It was called Project 12, and it was set in 2289 in this version of the Earth where people had started replacing their body parts. Like the person wanted a better arm, so the guy got a better robotic arm. The person changed their body, for example, got robotic legs. Eventually, the person had changed so much of their physical body that they had become a complete robot. So the Project 12 is the story about the year 2289, where human beings have gone extinct, but the human design robots are pretty much acting like human beings. There's no such thing as a biological human being anymore. And so Project 12 is these robots acting like human beings, and Project 1 and Project 2 are these two robots, male and female, and Project 2 is asking Project 1 for marriage. So pretty much I thought of this idea of robots getting married. The human mind, I feel it doesn't experience itself as an object. That means we are technically not just the stuff in the room, we're the awareness to the whole room as well. So that means the mind is technically boundaryless, it is the space, and the matter is the body. That means technically, because the mind appears as the awareness to the whole moment, your body is in your mind. So that means your body projects a mind, then experiences that body in itself. So the human mind, if we want the human design, to echo, we have to keep it engaged with the activities of the world. That means we have to instantly assume there is endless potentials, endless ways of humanhood that we haven't explored. Because you can't survive if you don't create space. This is so key in life. That sometimes, just like you gotta create space to move, imagine a bunch of furnitures in front of you, you gotta create space to move. Imagine a bunch of boxes. So similarly, you gotta create space in your inner realms to move. That means human beings have the ability of attachment and detachment. If we become attached to the human body, then we have to continue it. That means we want the form, the human shape to echo. If we become detached to the human body, it could be the ideals of humanity that we want to echo further. I've noticed that the species fears its future, so it wants to hide in the past so it doesn't get to see it. The New Age community talks about the here and now. All these people who run towards Eckhart Tolle, they speak about the here and now. It's like, where are we? We're here, and everything's happening now. Yay, here and now. But I'm telling you, it is in some sense it's an immobilization of an opportunity. That means there could be this view that it took you 4 billion years to have an ego just for you to think that you have to immobilize it into a sort of experiential voidness of how nowhere and everything that's now here is the same. If we want the the mind of man to echo into the future, the voice of man is enough. That means if in the future just the voices, our voices echo into the future, but we go extinct, but our voices somehow echo. That's technically showing footage of our existence to the future. But if we want the shape, if we want the human design, if we want the objective realms to echo, then we have to, in some sense, take time seriously. And so I've written 3 questions here that I said it in part 1, but I'm going to say it here. That I thought of looking at the human being in a dimension of time that's first linear, then wondering about a non-linear scope of human behavior as it marches through the space-time continuum. How were we human? How are we human? How long will we be human? 3 questions starting from the past, going to the present, going to the future. How did we become human? Evolution gives us an explanation. Various storylines based on people's inner experiences is giving them an explanation. How are we human is more of an engagement. So when you look at what you're being, really the past is relevant to you, but when you want to do something, the present is relevant to you. And really how what you do in the present, it becomes something in the future, is the future. So you can say the past and the future are modalities of being filtered through the cause of the action in the present. Because technically an echo isn't the actual thing. Do you know that means when I say how far can human design echo, again, it could totally be a situation where human beings don't exist and the patterns echoing, our voices, our ideas, images of us, something. For example, Elon Musk, he sent like a Tesla vehicle, this electric car into space, and by doing that, he literally made Tesla the most incredible brand of a car. Like, what car company do you know that they've sent a car in space? That car in space is an echo of human design. I just wish Elon Musk could have, maybe stored that thing with a kind of DVD device where they could just play it and see the footage of human civilization. It all has to do with how communication is experienced. I personally feel that we're moving to a point where we're acknowledging ourselves as minds and we're acknowledging the mind beyond shape, which technically means for the first time we're not relating particles to one another, we're realizing the mind can be a field. So there could be this realization that life was never human and it was never temporary. That it was energy, consciousness was there before energy. If that's the case, we are definitely eternal beings. But if energy requires to be there, and sorry, I shouldn't say consciousness because consciousness relates to a form. I should say awareness. Awareness. So you can say you right now, even though you're a cellular being and we've developed languages and all this, but me, like literally me as a creature being aware of myself right now, that's literally energy plus attention. So, and when energy becomes a creature of attention to itself, we call that a creature. No, sorry, we don't call that a creature. We call that awareness. When you add form to the equation, so energy plus attention plus form equals the human being. I'm going to write it down here. This would be a good definition of human design, which is technically the human being. For me, I noticed something about the scholarly mindset that after some point, it's like it's like there's a level of search where you still care about how you express it, but then there comes a level of search where the question is so important that realities or certain realities automatically become inferior. Now, here's the cool thing. Energy and form. When we think about these, energy, Einstein kind of spoke about it as mc squared. So that means energy is a relationship of mass and light. So you can say attention is a dimension separate from mass and light. And if in some sense attention is separate, form is separate, that means these are the three dimensions the human being is existing. A dimension of pure energy, which we call this the being part of the human being. A dimension where it's pure attention, where we call this, you can call it in some sense You can say this is this. You can say the attention would be this. Okay, let me go to the form here. Let's start with the form. The form is the body. The attention is the mind. The energy is the soul. There we go. Could we see something more beautiful? You know, a trio of dimensionality, multidimensionality. So I would say, what does that mean? That means when we wonder about the human being, we can't ignore that we're being energy on some level, just being it instantaneously. There's no truth, no language, no concept. It's just being energy. Okay? Then there is an attention to this energy, and this attention seems, through the condition of a form, to be able to move. So that means when I'm experiencing my body right now, my physical body seems to be in the spotlight of my attention, which seems to be this spherical awareness. So I'm kind of like this candle that it's like the wax is the body, the light is the awareness, and the form is the candle. The attention, the attention is like the shadow that is cast on the wall, and the energy is the candle, let's say, the candle flame. I'm just trying to create this picture that at some point don't you think it's hilarious? Don't you think it's that we broke up an atom and we named it, literally, the particles inside the atom. We broke an atom apart and we suddenly named protons, electrons, and neutrons, and we broke those particles and we called them quarks, and eventually we theoretically went down towards, what is it, 10 dimensions or 11 dimensions of string theory. I think it's 10 or 11, I don't know, I think it's 11 maybe. So what I'm saying is, it's like we break the atom and we name it, but we want to explore our psychology, and when we try to break the psychology and explore it, suddenly, don't talk about abstraction, it's not real. Then why is it accessible? I understand it's not real, it's not tangible. The thing is, imagination, it's not about its reality. It's about if reality is being defined objectively, yeah, imagination is not real. But if you if you for a second think that everything you see is an inner phenomenon in your brain, as many people consider, so that inner phenomena is technically something happening within you. So when we really ask about what is the human design, if we reverse engineer back into its beginning, it will be inconceivable. If we really amplify and go to the future, eventually we will evolve, and it will be inconceivable. It's as if this universe is designed so that the new constantly realigns what was there. So on some level, I think we have to prioritize quality of living over even too much trying to surpass extinction. Because how far can we go? In other words, imagine we were like an interstellar civilization. Imagine was inspired by Terry Fox, and we were repopulating like the whole cosmos with the human design and human beings and Type 3 civilization harnessing the power of its sun. And let's say we managed to, a certain scientific circles consider this, that we might have this ability where there's these two theories that we can use literally the sun of our solar system to move our solar system. But for that, we need more of a heliocentric analysis of the planets. What does that mean? That means when you look at we are looking at it geocentric. What does that mean? That means right now we are looking at everything in accordance to Earth. Do you see? We look at the sun and we look at the planets around it, and that's the basic astronomy that children are taught. But the heliocentric model is what the sun is spinning around. And that means suddenly there's another dimension of circular and spiral-like behavior. So that means when you suddenly are drawing a circle in one dimension and you just turn a degree and draw a circle in another dimension, in some sense there will be a strange curvature to the moment. I feel that we are a field of attention where particles move, and it's like our experience of our own body is as an event. So this is one of those, grand Mr. Within questions, I would say. That if I acknowledge that everything, this is a changing world, and I acknowledge at the same time in this changing world there is the same me that wakes up every day. This is strange because it's like when you see the weather change, it's not the same weather. So if when you experience your body change, it's like you're experiencing an event, right? So my physical existence so far in this life has been like an event to me, a series of events, and it's as if every decision I make has multiple consequences, but I have access to a certain range of them. And eventually these create some sort of karmic, outcome. I mean, that's a phenomenal idea, guys. Know that our physical existence appears to us as an event, but it appears as a slow event. So we're saying the mind is moving slower than the body. That's why it's in the body. If we realize we're minds before we're bodies and the mind moves faster, then we can totally surpass the human design. And me personally, I'm not afraid of it, but I think nowadays people will be afraid of it. Like it's too soon. I'm too much of an early bird. You know? I'm that blue jay that accidentally, flew into a time machine. So, in the chat section, welcome, King M. Let me tell you, life can have a horizontal evolution and a vertical evolution. Guys, let's build up more on this witnessing your physical existence as an event idea. So, my biggest question in this lifetime, it happened on a rock in Edwards Garden in Toronto, Canada, where I was sitting on this rock and I was perceiving this river move from behind me forward. So I was on this rock in the middle of this kind of river, small river dash, stream. So the water's moving forward. I'm sitting on this rock and I'm just looking at the water go forward. It's a sunny day, and I can feel the sunlight. And in that moment, this is in 2011, I asked myself a question that I've never asked. And it's not that I asked myself, it was just suddenly it occurred. Some questions, they find you before you find them. This is a question that I've found, but some questions find you way before. The question that came to me was very simple. I was sitting on this rock and I was wondering, who am I? And then I noticed my mind is generating an answer. And then the question came again, and then it was like, who's looking through my eyes? That was the exact question. And then I gave an answer, and I suddenly realized, then I asked the question, who's looking through my eyes? I gave another answer. I asked myself, and then I realized, how could I be all these answers? So I noticed my mind is generating a life over life. And so I feel we have an impersonal life and a personal life. Our personal life is how we feel we're a self in a world. Our impersonal life, that's our personal life. Our impersonal life is in some sense how we are, how the world is being ourself. You know, it's kind of like looking at the word Mr. Within and wondering how could that, you know, how could those words be more within one another? Even the language is gone within itself, you know? I notice that a lot is being experientially perceived, but not a lot is being communicated. And I feel that the human design must be cherished, must be valued. You know, that means really, I mean, the educational system's job is to really teach people about human design. Now, let's say you just opened your eyes on Earth for the first time. And so you were like, what are these human beings? What is this human design? I would simplify that we take the word human and we take the word design and we look at them separately. The design component, I would say, relates to the sciences. Or let me say it like this. The human dimension is the life force. It's just life. It's the energy component. Okay? The human, the human concept of it. The design is in some sense the direction to the energy, let's say. So the design is the shape of the life force. That means, or let me say it like this. I can't say it like this. I'm looking at the word human being actually. So I would say the design would come as human design would both be one concept. So I would say, imagine you're a human being and you're a human design of a being. So it would literally be like this. Let's try it another way. Let's look at the word life and the word form. And when you mix these two, we have the life form. Okay, so we right now as creatures on this in this world, in the space-time continuum, we are life forms, okay? So as life forms, the form is linear and in time. But the life is non-linear. The life is experiential, the form is existential. Okay? So what does that mean? That means whenever you notice existence, you are a form in a linearized time. Whenever you notice experience being instantaneous in the moment, that is a non-linearity. That means time is not in your attention. Something else got moved in the attention first. The study of the attention is one of the most blessed opportunities of this lifetime. And the issue is that people think they all have to succeed in the same way. Do you know how foolish that is? That means people should be all explorers. Every person should be running towards the unknown, extracting something new, and excavating something new from their inner realms and running back to the tribe. And really, what are the options? Because it's kind of like you look at life and you're like, all right, I could see endless problems here. You look at life and you're like, all right, so if there's endless problems, if there's infinite problems, there's infinite solutions. You know. That means even some problems that don't have answers, there would be so many solutions, it would be infinite. To other problems, it would be infinite. So we see there is no lack of problem and solution generation in the mind of the human being. You could look at something and instantly see it as a problem. You could look at something and see it as a solution. You know, a person looks at a flat tire and says like, "Oh gosh, you know, look at this." But there were back in the day people who when they invented the wheel and whatnot. It was a situation where it was like, "Whoa." So it's like suddenly the treasure of back then has become the trash of today. So technologies get lost as, in some sense, as they become trash as future comes with its own command. For me, it's the grand question. We're all living here. And I notice that what's looking through my eyes is unknown. And because I have not had the ability to acknowledge the unknown, I have endlessly been looking for a shape in the void. The unknown is a great source of contentment. For a lot of people, it's also a great source of fear. They're like, I don't know what's there, it's unknown. You know, but then at the same time, you see, it's like it's like it's breathing room. That's what the unknown is. For a bewildered mind of a beast-like creature, it is there is the unknown is. Here's the thing: you gotta conquer fear before you can observe the unknown. You gotta dismantle the idea of fear. You know. So when I think about life, my experience comes into my consideration. When I think about my form, how I'm being a form here in this life, my existence comes into consideration. My human design connects me to my realm. My human design really makes me care for other human beings. You know? But if I was a different design, it would be logical in some sense, a very common idea that species, they resonate with what they can understand. That means you will always feel this in life, that not all crowds are meant for the person. A person is not meant to be in all moments. You know, that means I am this person that I feel in a healthy relationship between lovers. In some sense, it can't be just 24/7 togetherness. That would lead to certain amounts of insanity. It has to be, there has to be a story. That's the most important thing. When you saw, for example, like Venetian kind of romanticism, and the way it was kind of initiated, you'd see it was as if like Casanova back in the day. This dude was, in some sense, how can I tell you? It was falling in love with a hidden storyline in the moment. The person had understood that narrative is the context. Do you see? There's some people who just want to go change the concept, and there's some people who change the context. Okay? Anyways, the idea of it was that it's as if me and you are in our own journey. Are not, sorry, are me and you are on the same boat, but we're different captains of it. You know? It's honestly about balance, I feel. So, guys, interesting idea. Ivan says the snake that eats its own tail must have a place where it cannot know or feel. That place is the within. I wouldn't say the within is a place. The within is a non ideological experiential remembrance that the mind is simultaneously being the whole moment. That's how far I've felt comfortable to talk about it. I mean, I've wondered about its evolution all the time. You know, so guys, Ivan says, why does the universe expand so fast? I don't know, maybe it has a lot of gas. Pun intended, like cosmic gas. For me, it's like, here's the thing. Ivan, so as a response to what you're saying, I think no, because in some sense, not the attempt to, I mean, in some sense, yeah, because, I want to say because of the attempt to define it. Here's the thing. If it's because we can't see the edges of the universe, we can't be certain of the speed. We could say our vision, if we think free will is an illusion, how is the universe expanding? Like, we gotta ask this question from the secular society. My concern, Ivan, in the chat section, I would tell you, is between how much people are actually creating their meaning and how much of actual meaning there is in the world. I think if we go based on a sensory perception, the actual meaning in the world is limited. At most, it's three-dimensional objects and it's color, right? But when we go beyond the sensory, I don't know. I think there's something more there. I think there's definitely something more than a concept here. Like, we're not just concepts here. We take it so for granted. I mean, I honestly thought, guys, how hilarious would it be if in the future extraterrestrials come down to Earth and they're like, all right, human beings, tell us where you come from. And we'll be like, all right, so there was this big bang. And then in like fraction of a second, there was cosmic inflation, then galaxies and everything popped out. And after a long cooling process, we in some sense are here as this. And the aliens will start laughing like, "Oh, these guys think they were shot into existence." I would say that we need a multidimensional sophistication. We have feared it. The archaic is strange. The archaic considered the world multidimensional but banned it. I was like, how hilarious is it? When you talk about the soul in a religious community, it's as if it's a secret of God. Don't be too bold, don't talk about it. Okay, but the idea is that it's an attempt to see them transcendental. That means the religious narrative is transcendental. It's not one reality they're entertaining. People, do you believe there's people on this earth right now, so many people, that it's as if the future was an alien, it has fully completed possessing people. But on some level, the future is also the only game to play. It's strange. You see, the body is not sentient. Because the body has no free will. So the argument for free will, that we have free will, that this life isn't just an elemental illusion and hallucination of electrons, an hallucination in electromagnetic fields even. I would say the argument for free will would go like this. That free will, first of all, is a conditional setting. You need a human individual to even consider the free will. Now, the idea is that in that conditional space where free will is accessible, why those decisions of the free will? It's kind of like putting four kinds of cheese, and then like a rat in this maze has to go towards this cheese, and you're like, which scent draws the rat, for example, you know? That's okay. That's an interesting concept. Okay, that's okay, guys. So Ivan, I would say I'll give you that. That's an interesting concept. So you're saying the free will of the body. So the processes of the biological body are those free will that wouldn't be relevant to us because if it's the free will of something else, then how does it relate to us? You know. I'm pretty much saying technically the fact that free will is an illusion could be correct overall, but it's strange that it's like while the pilot is in the plane of existence, why did the pilot move in that way? Sometimes I feel like human life is like night vision goggles for a multidimensional being, you know? So the body doesn't have free will. I don't know what you're saying on it. Because the body would, if the body, if you're considering, do you consider do you consider your heart beating based on your free will right now? That's the question. So if the heart is not beating based on your free will, I mean, overall, your free will decides how long it beats. But I'm saying, like, I don't know. What I've learned is it's okay not to know. Sometimes you gotta wonder about all that you know and all that you don't know. If we didn't care about what we didn't know, we wouldn't evolve. Human design. It could be the creation of human design. That means it could be the designs the human being leads to. It could be how far the echo goes. It could be how far the echo goes that somebody hears a tune or a song or something and they just remember it. There's so many stories that people have told me, and just by them saying it, I've remembered it. You know? I don't know. I feel that people are so occupied by external activities that they don't stop sometimes throughout the day to just see what their mind is doing. I think that sometimes I've noticed what is different between my own perception and the perception of others. And I've noticed that for me, it's significant when something changes, just in my own experience. I think a lot of people are living insignificant lives to themselves, not realizing they only get a shot at every day once. On some level, the day happens and goes by, and it's like the choices could have been made, or in some sense, they weren't. When I look at this picture, the contrast is so incredible that glow is like the glow of civilization, the glow of that city in this picture I've chosen. And the blue mist is like the mystery of what beholds us, or what awaits us. I sat down and I kind of thought, all right, how advanced did we become compared to people 1,000 years ago? And I was like, way advanced. Then I wondered how advanced will we be 1,000 years from now, and I wondered if that moves to the inconceivable. Because I wondered about the inconceivable, I wondered about the edge of conception. The edge of conception for the human being is the edge of human design. It is the edge of how far we echo. On some level, it's technically like, even though we fear extinction, but every human being technically dies. So whether we extinction is just the overall outcome. It's just like how far the others make it after we're gone. It's like the scientist giggled as he said, on a long enough time span, everybody dies, everything changes. I feel that Lao Tzu, the shamans, the dervishes, just people back in the day, they didn't just have they didn't, like, think about it. There wasn't technology. Their imagination was their divinity. The new things they saw moved their lives. And eventually they had to trust their inner selves. Lao Tzu has this story where he would go on these silent walks in the forest. And one day he has a disciple, and the whole walk they go on this silent walk, and at the end of it, the disciple wants to ask a question. He makes one simple question and noise. And after that, Lao Tzu only walks alone in the forest. And Lao Tzu was this guy, can you imagine? Like, I mean, I've done this once in my life where it was a very intense moment, guys. This was actually in Edwards Gardens when I had walked towards the very end, and I had suddenly randomly decided to start running into the forest out of the trail, and just to see what I see and what happens. And I remember doing that, and I was going based on this rhythm, as if I felt kind of like, a martial artist in a flow of jumping and whatnot. It was like there was a hardcore ambition there. And I remember I just ran and I just jumped over all these things, and even branches and trees and all this hit me. But there was a momentum. It was as if the energy of the way I wanted to move was way more important than what was hitting me. And so I eventually came on this, found this giant log, and I jumped on it, and the log cracked as if there was a moss, as if the whole thing could have kind of collapsed. I was there for a second. I just touched this tree, and I just close my eyes, and I just feel for a second the presence of the moment. When I was young, like, my grandparents would bless, like, literally, they were religious people, and they would constantly, like, bless their grandkids, all their grandkids. And so it was this idea where I remember I had this idea where I would bless trees. And the way I would bless trees is I would just put my hand on the tree and just acknowledge that it's alive. That's it. Just an instant moment, as if, like, I see the nature that's here. There's sometimes that you just have to trust the moment. I can't tell you. There's no feeling of excitement or adventure without some unknown variable in the moment. Elon Musk shared something incredible. He shared that when he starts a business, he doesn't think about, yo, it's going to succeed, I want to succeed, hard work like an animal, succeed, you know. He doesn't think like that. He thinks about, all right, let's assume it's going to fail. How do we reduce the chances of its failure? And then you can implement the same design to the human being, where you're like every day you're not trying to per se find truth, but you're trying to reduce the barriers to what is your real experience of this life. For me, after some point, I realized that first you feel like you want to get out of it. You're in a room, you don't understand why. You want to escape it, and that's why enlightenment sounds cool, because you're not content with your moment. But when you become content with the dimensions of your moment, you can. I've personally experienced states where you're not a human idea to yourself. You're not any idea to yourself. You're just energy being instantaneously. There is no relationship to anything else. It's just pure being. So the first thought you have, you think it's a pure thought. The first vision you have, you think it's a pure vision, because the state is at a point where you're asking, like before psychology and individuality, what was the child? The child was just being the moment. We're not born as people. We become individuals. That is a huge implication that there's intelligence before it is shaped. So what does that mean? That means, in some sense, Plato said, if I remember correctly, he said geometry was before creation. Plato said this. Now, if you look at this idea, that means there was a blueprint. There was, as if just like an architect gets a thought of a house, draws it, and then builds the building. It's kind of like there was a blueprint, there was a geometry before expression. So it would be another way of saying, if the universe was a seed, that seed was geometric. And I personally feel that's the case. But now here's the thing. What was there before an acknowledgement of geometry? And that's when we go into the true unknown. And I feel a few bewildered, a few wondrous souls of truly mystics on this plane have dwelled. They have went to the pure unknown. The pure unknown is the inconceivable domain where you don't exist as a human thought because of two outcomes. One, it's literally the end result of the ultimate void and the end result of the infinite speed. So infinite speed. So it's as if in one way your dimension slowed down to a point where it stopped existing, and it's in another dimension your dimension sped up to such a point where it became infinite existence and infinite change. So it's the speed of change of a cosmological event that is suggesting the speed of change of what's in that cosmos. And what's in that cosmos, through that speed of change, if it retains still consciousness, then it has an ability to communicate. That means sometimes, like, these talks that I give, of course, it's been a solo journey for a long time, but it's also this thing where sometimes I'm like, all right, how many human beings wonder about the evolution of communication? The evolution of the mind's positioning. If the mind for a moment is a process, do you know what that means? That means sometimes your skills and your abilities as a being, based on your unique DNA, your skills and abilities unlock sometimes when you're not a thought. Did you know that? Sometimes when I have literally just become a watcher in the moment, those moments, the most innovative thoughts appear when I'm not expecting it, and that's why they become like gifts, you know? A child is born not even knowing it's a child, being human. Being human, guys, in the chat section says a child is born on condition. For me, I was sharing this with someone, and I said that I see a body to civilization, a mind to civilization, and strangely a soul. The soul, unknown mystery till the end of time, even a mystery beyond time. The mind, or let me say the body of the civilization, is the health of the biological beings, the actual biological human experience, okay, through existence. Now, the mind of the civilization is how the collective inner realm, which is the linguistic simulation, is accepted. The collective inner realm. You can say this is a kind of reverse envisionment of Carl Jung's collective unconscious. So here's the thing. We all have different senses of consciousness because we're different human beings with different eyes. But what we don't know is the same. So Carl Jung noticed this, and this became the collective unconscious, okay? That means what me and everybody else in the world doesn't know is the same. Carl Jung is saying this. Now, check this out. Imagine right now we're all individual consciousness, our own individual conscious designs, human designs, and now we all access that collective unconscious. We are no longer individual conscious designs. We return to the potential state of the civilization. Now, from the collective unconscious, now comes the question, what is the polar opposite of the collective unconscious? It would be the superior conscious individual. So I feel that evolution is constantly making future generations appear gods to like people thousands of years ago. I feel nature can even be perceived as a multi-dimensional where multiple events are occurring. And if the dimensions are 0.00, whatever amount of zeros you want, 1% chance linked, that means every dimension experiences. What does that mean? That means that prism on the back of the Pink Floyd album cover, the white light beam goes into the prism, it comes out as the color spectrum. Now imagine a color in that color spectrum, let's say the color green. Now suddenly something happens to the color green, and let's say the color blue is there. Would the color blue feel what happens to color green? What I'm saying is, if people can communicate, could it be potentially that dimensions and universes in a multiverse theory are also communicating with one another? I feel I'm maybe one of the first people suggesting that dimensions can communicate with one another. I feel we have underestimated our creative ability. I feel we have underestimated the ability of our attention. Study your attention in any work you do. It's the same. On some level, it's like, who can judge energy just being here? Do you know nobody can judge energy? Energy can't even be created or destroyed. We can't even judge it as a creative phenomenon or as a destructive phenomenon. Those are in some sense periodical transformations of it. So technically, imagine this energy was conscious even. The design means integrative connectivity with the geometrical nature of the universe. And integrative, geometrical, an integrative universal geometrical connection. You look at the universe, you look at geometry, you notice what is happening in this universe. There is literally, based on how much light there is in the room and how far the human civilization can look, phenomenology. On some level, of course, epigenetics again comes into this, how social behavior has kind of had its own imprint on really what the human design is and the consciousness is. But I feel we're literally waiting for an update. I feel all souls are yearning for an extraordinary event. Because the ordinary has become just resource allocation till you die. That means this civilization is inefficient simply because people don't have resources. So imagine if you had resources. Because we feel man's nature is not evolved, we are like, yo, we can't work it out, people are not fair. But on another level, if the person had resources, do you know what that means? Their work could move, in some sense, much more faster. We are creatures that don't just dress in clothing. We also dress through ideas, languages, and various shapes. I feel it's a very healthy thing I'm saying, that human beings should wonder about how space is coming across to them, how matter in the space is coming across from them. Imagine you're the first human being. What would you do? What would you see? What would your own theories, visions, experiences be? When you have that scope, then your authentic alertness finds you. And for me, there's an endless fascination. Someone could come and say, like Mr.Within, stop talking, and I'll be like, okay. And then I'm going to give a talk right after. You know, let me tell you why. Because on some level, the inner realms are there to experience the action for themselves. So anything you do, you technically get one angle, one side of the coin. You're just getting an experience from it, and the other side of the coin, others are getting an experience from it. So if the artist is drawing because of others, the artist doesn't know who others is. So eventually, the artist is drawing it's an unauthentic relationship. Let me tell you, I learned this years ago because before I gave these talks, I wrote a lot, like a ridiculous amount of like poetic rhythms. I ran through in my writing. And you know what I realized? It's about when you give yourself freedom and you experience that freedom, you give yourself freedom again. And then the pattern of the human being moves towards freedom, 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 only to come and see freedom is no longer conceptual. You've explored enough the intellectual fields, and now you're wondering about what is a field beyond the sensory. Aldous Huxley says there's things known and things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception. So what does that mean? That means the middle ground seems to be the fascination of it. We are human beings. Human beings are not perfect creatures. We need a natural environment. If we identify our progress with an unnatural environment, we're gonna destroy ourselves. If we somehow build an advanced civilization while simultaneously caring for nature, this caring nature doesn't mean go hug a tree. This caring for nature means If we were a mind for the environment, if you were the world's best friend, how would you advise it? How would you envision it? When you care for someone, you want to defend their mind. So for me, I'm like, there's a planet here. There's events occurring on this planet. Civilization is a rare event after 4 billion years with this sophistication. How far will the sophistication go? Guys, there's something I do in these talks where I call it a quote tunnel. I'm gonna look at the concept of what other people have said about the idea of the human, pretty much quotes about the human being. George S. Patton. Battle is the most magnificent competition in which a human being can indulge. It brings out all that is best. It removes all that is base. All men are afraid in battle. The coward is the one who lets his fear overcome his sense of duty. Duty is the essence of manhood. Rosa Parks says, I don't think well of people who are prejudiced against people because of race. The only way for prejudiced people to change is for them to decide for themselves that all human beings should be treated fairly. We can't force them to think that way. Carl Jung. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Maria Montessori. We discovered that education is not something which the teacher does, but that it is a natural process which develops spontaneously in the human being. Maria Montessori says joy, feeling one's own value, being appreciated and loved by others, feeling useful and capable of production are all factors of enormous value for the human soul. Martin Luther King Jr. Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. Oscar Wilde. How can a woman be expected to be happy with a man who insists on treating her as if she were a perfectly normal human being? Ellie Weasel says, just as despair can come to one only from other human beings, hope too can be given to one only by other human beings. And guys, anybody who wants me to explain one of these quotes, you can let me know. W.E. Du Bois. 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 So that's the guy's name. Anyways, a system of education is not one thing, nor does it have a single definite object, nor is it a mere matter of schools. Education is that whole system of human training within and without the schoolhouse walls, which molds and develops men. Franklin D. Roosevelt. If civilization is to survive, we must cultivate the science of human relationships, the ability of all peoples, of all kinds, to live together in the same world of peace. Edgar Allan Poe. I have no faith in human perfectibility. I think that human exertion will have no appreciable effect upon humanity. Man is now only more active, not more happy, nor more wise than he was 6,000 years ago. I mean, I think Edgar Allan Poe needs to get cheered up a little bit. Ronald Reagan says there are no great limits to growth because there are no limits of human intelligence, imagination, and wonder. What an incredible quote. There are no limits of human intelligence, imagination, and wonder. If Edgar Allan Poe could hear Ronald Reagan. Marcus Tullius Cicero. Of all nature's gifts to the human race, what is sweeter to a man than his children? Anne Frank. Human greatness does not lie in wealth or power, but in character and goodness. People are just people, and all people have faults and shortcomings, but all of us are born with a basic goodness. W.E.B. Du Bois says, believe in life. Always human beings will live and progress to greater, broader, and fuller life. That's the attitude, guys. Bois understands this. Jane Goodall says, certainly, if you look at human behavior around the world, you have to admit that we can be very aggressive. Bruce Lee says, ever since I was a child, I have had this instinctive urge for expansion and growth. To me, the function and duty of a quality human being is the sincere and honest development of one's potential. Mark Twain says the human race has one real effective weapon, and that is laughter. And you know why, guys? Because that's when we'll have the tolerance to see what's the beyond will look like. Maya Angelou, she says words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning. Excuse me. Maya Angelou says, find a beautiful piece of art. If you fall in love with Van Gogh or Matisse or John Oliver Killens, or if you fall in love with the music of Coltrane, the music of Aretha Franklin, or the music of Chopin, find some beautiful art and admire it and realize that it was created by human beings just like you, no more human, no less. Mary Wollstonecraft says slavery to monarchs and ministers, which the world will be long freeing itself from, and whose deadly grasp stops the progress of the human mind, is not yet abolished. Excuse me. Maya Angelou says we write for the same reason that we talk. Talk, climb mountains, or swim the oceans. Oh, sorry. We write for the same reason that we walk, talk, climb mountains, or swim the oceans. Because we can. We have some impulse within us that makes us want to explain ourselves to other human beings. That's why we paint. That's why we dare to love someone. Because we have the impulse to explain who we are. I'm going to comment on this, guys, because it's not just an impulse. I've called it a certain expression and reception threshold. It's not just about expressing, it's also about receiving. Sometimes when you receive, you feel you're being acknowledged. You feel you're being spoken to. You feel you're being seen by a reality that surpasses the ideological conception. You know, life is sometimes some rare souls in this world. Sometimes they can really see you. I mean, of course, those who know you, they can see you, but those who are unknown, let's say you're walking and for a second someone sees you. Franklin D. Roosevelt says there's a mysterious cycle in human events. To some generations, much is given. Of other generations, much is expected. This generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny. That means the fruit of the tree. That means the evolution of human effort. We must care for that more than anything else. Guys, Aristotle says courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others. Wow, 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 wow. That is it, guys. You gotta be brave when you stare in the face of the unknown. So anyways, guys, that's what I'm sharing for this episode. I'm going to open up to Q&A if anybody has a question. Meanwhile, I'm going to think how I'm going to end this talk. I can say the future generations are the echo of who we are now. We are planting the seeds. Our decisions are sculpting the world their eyes will walk in. We have to attempt the greatest ideological revolution. We have to attempt the multidimensional geometrical renaissance. We have to, in some sense, realize that now more than ever, human beings need to communicate. Because when you look at this planet from outside, from an aerial view, you see that in some sense it's like we're just creatures moving. Our communication is what makes us surpass. Our civilization is fueled by decent communication. I don't know, guys. Some nights I've just like what I've. There's been definitely. I mean, the human being. It's like the Buddha said, this life is a solo journey. But and if there's others, it's a blessing. Like companionship is an addition. It's like luxury. To be honest, you're born solo and you kind of leave solo. But you can endure collectively before the transition, solo transition. You know, so it's literally like a roller coaster. You've gone on the roller coaster with all the other human beings while you're alive, but then at the end, you personally get off the roller coaster seat you're on. We shouldn't fear human life because really, what are we fearing? We don't even know what the human being is. It's It's like, how can I be afraid? I don't even know what the outcome will be. I don't even know what my own ability will be. I don't know. I feel the society is so conditioned to have physical outcomes that it never wonders about internal outcomes. In the Sufi, there's this Sufi story where they say this dervish for 70 years he thought he knew everything, and then he dies, and then he realizes what the value of life was, and that's the story. He lived his whole life not realizing what life was, and that's what I'm saying. There's deeper dimensions. Your eyes are, in some sense, the opening. What else can be said? I mean, really, we are only left with poetry when we wonder about the infusion of the sensory with the inner knobs, you know? All right, guys. So, Hurricane has asked the ultimate question, the question of all questions, the most next level question, guys. Is there a level to be next to? Is there a level to be next to? I mean, that sentence it's like a double-edged sword. It has two types of meaning. In one way, is there a level to be next to? Like in some sense, you just want to be beside a level as if it was a stone column. You could be next to this level. Or in some sense, what is the ultimate evolution? Because if there is a level to be next, even is it even possible for there to be a next level? I look at ants and I look at myself and I look at myself and I look at the solar system and the galaxies and I'm like, maybe. So I would say, where are these levels? These levels experientially are behind your eyes, existentially are in front of it. So that's my attempt of an answer, bro. the eyes of the future depend on how we become a memory for them. And I feel that if 8 billion human beings started communicating, therefore it would mean free will is identifying with self-expression, but this self-expression is happening in a collective place. So that means we just need to go into a creative state. Then we need to attempt to live as an. I don't know how I can see those stages. I don't know if I can see them clearly, but I could see that it's not going to be like a. It's going to be a unification of human beings in a language of skill. So, anyways, guys. Anyways, guys, I hope this talk has been helpful. I don't know, there was something so appealing about this wallpaper. It was like an emotion. Like this wallpaper is a perfect translation of, like, if an emotion was a landscape, this would be you. The emotion of nostalgic wonder. The civilization, the town makes it feel nostalgic. I mean, guys, sometimes I've wondered like how cool it is to live like the simpler dimensions of life sometimes give naturally open up to natural complex avenues. Anyways, guys, I hope this talk was helpful. Much blessings and namaste. You know. May the future generations roam the skies with great wonder.